So, you might be thinking that we're not going to be seeing Majin Vegeta again. Well, the King of Earth may not be the only thing that Barbary picks up from the Earth grocery store. Hey folks, MasakoX here. Haverock had an idea one day, and that revolved around the idea that Hercule might not have necessarily gone down the route that most people go in Dragonball, and that is down the route of being a nice guy. Sure, Hercule might have been quite selfish, pompous and arrogant to the teeth, but ultimately, he was a decent bloke who would do the goods when the need arose. Twice now, he saved the universe from peril, and is the only Dragon Team associate to have never passed on to the other world. And no, Whis' do-over doesn't count, since it technically never happened, thanks to the way angels work. However, here, his victory against Cell took him down another path. A path toward global conquest. And not just in the entertainment industry. Here, he is going for total domination. In the last part, we saw these events unfold from the perspective of Videl, his daughter. Seeing her situation change drastically over the course of just a few years. Her freedom curtailed, her movements checked, and almost every single aspect of her life scrutinized and monitored by people outside of her wheelhouse. The only saving grace she had right now was that she finally got to go to Orange Star High School, a public academy, where she could go about her business for a few hours a day without interruption from Daddy Dearest, suffocating her figuratively, of course. Because of this, she got to meet Gohan, and this time around, she is far less in control of his identity. After her getting hurt fighting crime, Hercule didn't take her cry for help to heart, and instead went the other way. And now, things were terrible for everyone. Freedom, an afterthought. She pleaded with Gohan to take her away, and he did, reluctantly. However, as that was going on, a little potato had scheduled a meeting with the king, and had placed certain parameters around their arrangement. In this timeline, something was badly wrong. Something completely untoward had started to happen within the Dragon World. Earth's defensive forces were put into a readying stance, on the cusp of doing something rather drastic as their new orders were issued to the military forces. All of this coming from the king himself. What had happened? Was this some kind of new foe, ready to destroy the world? Had Cell come back? No, the princess had been taken. To some, this seemed rather drastic and out of proportion, but those voices were very quiet since they wanted to keep their job. The individual known as the Great Saiyan was their target. That freedom fighter had been allowed to romp around since he hadn't posed a threat yet, but now he had struck. He had to be captured. The kidnapping the king's daughter. At Capsule Corp, nerves were being strained. Bulma knew that if he were captured Gohan and his garb inspected, it would all come back to her company for assisting him. Granted, she was slightly more concerned for Gohan's safety, but in this climate of tension, Hercule was capable of doing anything, including bringing down her family's business into state control by force. But as she was weighing up the situation, Bulma could hear a rather irritated yell coming from her living room, a rather irked drawl. What's this idiot got himself into now? She peered into the room. It was Vegeta, beer in hand, yelling at the TV. Pictures of the incident plastered on the screen. You mean Gohan or the king? Vegeta turned to Bulma and gave her a small smirk, their humour on point in that moment. He turned back to the TV. Both, if I'm honest. They're both acting like imbeciles. If the rumours are true, Gohan did this over some girl. I knew that stupid costume would come back to bite him. And you, Bulma. Bulma tried to hide her own personal concerns with sass, a tried and tested method with the prince. Ah, are you afraid that Gohan is stealing your spotlight in the screwing up department? Vegeta groaned. Look, that was a long time ago, and I do know that this is some idiotic misunderstanding, but this bumbling fool of a king may escalate that to a level that can really make our lives insufferable. If this comes back to you, that oath could end everything your family built. You really think so? She was glad to hear that her husband was on the same page in that regard, but Vegeta wasn't done yet. Perhaps it's time I intervene before it gets that far. He got up and put on his gloves. Wait, where do you think you're going? He gives his wife a knowing look.
Stopping the boy from screwing up. After all, that's my department.
He winked at Bulma.
I'm going to go and find that boy and knock some sense into him. Jeez. Out of all women he could have hooked up with, he had to choose the king's daughter.
When I look at his father and yourself, I can see a certain pattern forming. Vegeta blushed. You really think it's about this? That this is Gohan's rebellious streak? Vegeta gave off a pensive aura.
I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Before I go, tell Trunks that if he gets any ideas about kidnapping some rich guy's kid as his potential love interest, I'll ground him personally.
Bulma nodded. Well, have fun then. Try not to go too hard on him. And as such, Vegeta headed out to sense where Gohan's energy was heading. Thankfully though, it was going to the usual place, so it wasn't too hard tracking him. As Detective Vegeta was establishing himself on the case, Gohan and Videl were blissfully unaware of any of the mess that he and her had created, because he was busy training Videl, teaching her how to fly and things like that, the usual stuff. And as for the training itself, well, it was quite the long slog. But he had to admit that the girl was making massive progress for somebody who had never tapped into their own life energy before. She was learning relatively quickly. He had to check himself sometimes, in fact, that not everybody could easily engage with their ki. To some, they didn't even know they had ki to engage with in the first place. And also, needless to say, both Videl and Gohan grew fond of each other, as teenagers often do when they're in close quarters with one another. I mean, they had been gone for several hours, alone, and some of their formal attitudes had melted away, as they had gotten down to the business of training. No, bad viewer, stop it! It would probably have developed even further had it not been for a certain somebody getting in the way. A pretty loud and irritated prince.
Hey you! Lovebirds!
At first, both of them blushed at the mention of that term to describe them, but Gohan then quickly recognized that voice, and the color on his face drained rapidly. Oh man, what was Vegeta doing here? And how did he know about Videl? Vegeta glided down to meet the pair and promptly grabbed Gohan's top, pulling him in close.
Do you have any idea what sort of problems you two have caused?
Gohan was waving his hands around frantically, in innocence. What? We're not doing anything. I was just showing Videl how to use ki. Vegeta gripped tighter.
Not that boy!
Videl, though, was less scared and more confused. Do you know this loud and obnoxious man? Also, he was flying like you do. Gohan sighed and fessed up. Videl, this is Vegeta, my father's friend. Vegeta rolled his eyes. They were not friends. But Gohan was more curious, though, about why Vegeta was here, and what he had just said. Wait, what do you mean by trouble?
You really shouldn't have taken that girl, Gohan. Her father's only gone and set the entire planet's defenses on you. Not only that, but people are being arrested about nothing, questioned about your movements. I saw this for myself on the way here. Luckily, the military haven't figured out how to look up yet.
Videl could not believe this. Her father, surely he wouldn't have gone that far to get her back. Would he? Well, he had. She checked her TV watch to fact-check this, what Vegeta had said, and realized that this high-forehead, spiky-haired fellow was right. About everything. The two of them were all over the news, and what was her father thinking about that tattoo? Was that his own cry for help? What did that M even mean? Miguel? Her mother? But her mind was clear, though. Gohan, we have to go back and set this all straight. You need to get me back there. Training can wait. Yeah. Gohan didn't need telling twice, but she just smirked.
Your woman is smart, I'll give her that.
Helping Videl to take her first real flight on her own, Gohan put his helmet on and decided to head off for the king's residence to straighten things out before the entire planet was consumed in all-out mindlessness. Vegeta followed them to make sure they stayed on target, not getting any ideas. This wasn't just about some idiots getting arrested and everyone being nervous. It was all about the comfort of the life he had during those years. This was for himself. He didn't want Capsule Corp being overrun with government toadies, and then his own existence being brought into question. If he then got attached to that East City incident all those years ago, then things would start getting difficult for him too. No more plush lifestyle fit for a prince anymore. But then this dawned on him. What was he thinking? This isn't the way a prince should think. He felt sickened by this thought of desiring cushiness. He realised that he had grown too attached to all of this luxury and sedateness, and it prompted him to then react. A few years ago, this would have all been the boy's business solely, to fix his own mess. Yeah, he was repaying a debt to him, saving his life all those years ago. Though he was entirely sure that the entire Defense Force of Earth would not pose a threat to Gohan anyway, even if it really, really tried. But still, it was a massive threat for peace. And that internally felt wrong to him right now, that attachment to peace. After Kakarot had died, he thought he would never fight again. Was he losing his warrior spirit? He should be enjoying the idea of this challenge. He should be yearning to stomp the bumbling fool calling himself the king and his little army, showing how moronic they all were, how this whole charade was moronic. But instead, he was going down the route of diplomacy. Hey, Vegeta, thanks for letting us know. I guess we really messed up, huh? Vegeta was lost in thought.
Yeah, no problem.
As they were approaching Hercule City, they witnessed the full mobilization of troops. It had spiraled out of control. Badly so. When the men noticed 3 flying figures approaching, finally looking up, they opened fire without question. This forcing Gohan to try and cover Videl from the incoming bombardment. We have to get in closer, so they'll recognize Videl and stop! Vegeta brushed armaments aside with his ki.
If we get any closer, they'll keep shooting us more!
Vegeta was getting tired though of this mess, and fired some non-lethal ki blasts in order to destroy some of the weaponry, to allow Videl and Gohan to indeed get closer and land. The remaining shots had shattered a part of Gohan's helmet off, and Gohan shouted out loud, "Stop! I'm here to talk! I brought Videl home! She was never in any danger! Cease your fire, idiots! It's me!" The soldiers decided to inform the king, who decided to get down there pronto, with his new security chief in tow. And said security chief looked very weird. He had red skin and a matching tattoo. He also had, apparently, an assistant of his own. A yellow-skinned, short fellow that kinda looked like a potato. Some of the security guards were holding weird contraptions too, something that neither Gohan or Vegeta had ever seen.
Well, so you decided to return my daughter after all, you cowardly...
Hercule paused for a second, after looking at the part of Gohan's face visible from under the shattered helmet. It had been a few years, but he recognized those eyes. That look. The Golden Warrior.
So that's what this all was about. You were here to steal my thunder.
Videl got in between the two men. No, Dad! You got it all wrong!
Be quiet, young lady! I'll deal with you later.
Videl was shocked to see a dad that riled up and uncaring about her own safety.
Dabura, could you deal with this blasted ruffian?
The security chief grinned widely.
With pleasure, sir.
Gohan took a defensive stance. Wait, I don't want to hurt you. Being used to the power of the soldiers, Gohan did not anticipate for a second the power of that incoming hit that this Dabura fellow actually had. He felt that punch, much to his and Vegeta's surprise. They hadn't felt that kind of power since the days of Perfect Cell. So, the two had to start to duke it out for real. Gohan avoiding a few spit shots that hit bystander soldiers, turning them into stone. Gohan had to actually go Super Saiyan 2 to match this guy. Alright, the boy was really slacking or the king got into contact with some powerful forces that he did not understand. Still, the fight was really flashy, and Gohan had to show his entire power to keep up. Meanwhile, as this was going on, Vegeta looked at the smaller one. He didn't look worried that Gohan was evenly matched with this horned freak. But what's this guy's deal? But finally, Gohan was able to beat down the chief of security. He was very tired by that encounter though. The king was mad.
You monster! You have no right beating up my strongest answer like that!
Barbary waved his hand in a calm manner.
Oh, no worries, your highness. I'm in the process of getting a new security chief anyway.
Vegeta pondered for a moment, wondering what he meant by that, and then looked at those devices. The Gohan looked pretty weakened. The prince knew he had been slacking, but this was uncharacteristic. But in that moment, when he slowly started to figure out what was going on with this charade, some intrusive thoughts got into his head. Thoughts of him having to deal with that boy's mess. Thoughts of owing this boy his life. The boy that gave up a large portion of his training and now had gotten himself into an idiotic superhero farce. thoughts of his Saiyan nature being quashed by this unbearably sweet, comfy life. Vegeta started to giggle, attracting Gohan's attention. Vegeta, what is He paused, seeing an M had appeared on the older Saiyan's forehead.
I could not have beaten your worthless father, but you will do.
And that first blast sent Gohan flying. Videl was terrified. Vegeta had turned on them, siding with her father seemingly. She had to do something. That small guy, that little potato, he had something to do with this, with her father and all the others. Her dad had been tricked, that was it. He didn't come up with this on his own. He had that M belt buckle whatever thing on. This guy, this potato was pulling the strings. She ran toward Babidi. Hey, stop whatever you're doing, you little... But when Vegeta saw movement, he just sent a ki blast in that direction. A huge explosion which ensued, tossed everyone around like rag dolls. The dust blew up. Gohan, weakened and beaten up, tried to call for Videl, but he couldn't see her anywhere. And what's even worse, Vegeta was more than ready for a fight. Hercule was watching the whole scene go down from under some rubble. Abominations. All of them. But wait, where's Videl? Where's his little angel? He touched his own bleeding forehead as he yelled for his daughter, but the yell was drowned out by a sound of ki blasts cascading around him, being sent the Golden Warrior's way. The dust still wasn't settling. The battle was on. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Do you think Hercule will snap out of this and help somebody for once? Will Videl be the one to stop Babidi, preventing Majin Buu from being brought back forth and making things 10 times worse for everyone? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!